This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Offtrack Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning. Welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Coming up a little bit later on this morning's show, we will be joined by Frank Vespi, theracingbiz.com. They do a great job covering racing in the Mid-Atlantic, mainly taking a look at Maryland, and we'll take a look at Maryland today. Frank will give us some ideas, taking a look at some of the stakes races on the Maryland Millions card at Laurel today. Nice stakes card down at Laurel, so we'll hit on that. In New York at Belmont Park is Empire Showcase Day. So yesterday I reached out to Jeremiah Englehart. We talked some of his runners on the Empire Showcase Day card, so we fill you in on some of that action as well. But we're going to start out, don't forget, Woodbine a little bit later this afternoon, a chance for a Triple Crown. Who would have thought late October we'd be talking Triple Crown, but north of the border, Mighty Heart for Josie Carroll. Will go in the Breeders' Stakes after having won earlier the Queen's Plate at Woodbine and the Prince of Wales at Fort Erie later today. Mighty Heart goes for the Breeders up at Woodbine and a Canadian Triple Crown. So wanted to kind of alert you to that, to keep your eyes towards Woodbine a little bit later today as well. Reached out to Josie Carroll yesterday to get updated on her thoughts for Mighty Heart this afternoon in the Breeders. So up next, trainer Josie Carroll. Happy to be welcoming now Josie Carroll because, it is the end of October, but there's a Triple Crown on the line. Wanted people to be aware up at Woodbine, Mighty Heart has the shot to sweep the Canadian Triple Crown on Saturday at Woodbine, and we're happy to welcome in Mighty Heart's trainer, Josie Carroll. Josie, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to have you on board to talk a little bit about the Triple Crown. And just before we get to the horse specifically, how exciting is it for you and around the barn to be heading into the last leg of the Triple Crown with a shot with Mighty Heart?
Obviously very exciting. It's a big Canadian triple, and it hasn't been done a long time. So, and by very few horses. So to have this little horse jump up and do it would be terribly exciting. Yeah,
it's certainly, as I say, exciting just on the horse racing fan front that it's a little bit of a different year and a little bit later in the year, but it's fun to have this coming up here later in October, which again would be a little bit out of the norm normally. But let's jump in now and talk specifically about Mighty Heart, and let's go back and take a look at the first couple of legs. I have replays here, and let's talk a little bit about first the Queen's Plate. You had three horses in the Queen's Plate: Mighty Heart, Belichick, and Curlin's Voyage. And Mighty Heart gets it done here as we're watching the replay, the number 13. Chart margin is 7.5 lengths. This was just a phenomenal performance. And buyer-wise, the buyer jumped up significantly. Did you see this performance coming in the Queen's Plate?
I expected a very good race from this horse. Certainly didn't expect him to jump up his numbers the way he did and draw off the way he did.
Talk a little bit about how he came into the race and what were your thoughts, prior to the race. What were your expectations as you went into the race?
Truly, a horse could not have worked into a race any better than this horse worked into the Queen's Plate. He was very, very impressive in the mornings and was getting steadily more professional about everything. He was a very inexperienced horse who has grown with that start.
Subsequently, and let's take a look at the replay of the Prince of Wales over at Fort Erie, and Mighty Heart here will be the number 2 horse. That day he went off as the chalky favorite. He's going to get it done over Clayton here. How did he come out of the Queen's Plate? And what were your expectations coming into the Prince of Wales at Fort Erie for Mighty Heart?
Well, I was pretty certain they wouldn't let us skip away on the lead after his performance in the plate. And I just did tell Daisuke in the paddock that, there are some other horses with speed in here. Just don't worry about them. If they go to the lead, this horse will be more than happy to sit off.
Which he did, as opposed to, as you say, the Queen's Plate, where he was pretty much on the front the entire way. This one, he was sitting back, and Fukumoto then made that closing kick and got it done. What were your concerns? Because the fun part about the Canadian Triple Crown is 3 different surfaces: synthetic for the Queen's Plate, dirt at Fort Erie, and turf coming up Saturday afternoon back at Woodbine in the Breeders. But what was your concern getting to the dirt at Fort Erie in the Prince of Wales?
I thought we'd be fine on the dirt. We had this horse in New Orleans and the fairgrounds over the winter, and he handled that surface just fine.
And let's talk a little bit about that. You started the career as a 3-year-old earlier this year, February and March, a couple of starts at the fairgrounds, an off-the-turf race and then a turf race that had to be disappointing. But I was reading the column. Tom Padula had a nice column profiling you and the horse within the past few days, and it talked about the patience you had to have with the horse, and a little bit of disappointing, obviously, down at the fairgrounds. But subsequently, there was a tooth problem that was discovered, right? And a tooth was removed.
Yeah, I mean that was just one of many little things that we dealt with. I don't think it was a really big deal, but certainly he had a wolf tooth that was embedded in his gum a little bit that may have contributed to the way he was cocking his head, and the bit may have irritated it when it was in there. It was just something we took care of.
Once he got up to Woodbine after Fairgrounds, broke the maiden pretty quickly in the first start up at Woodbine, which was the 3rd start of the career, then a 3rd in Allowance Company, and now the 2 nice wins. So he's turned out to be a very nice horse. And again, from reading the Padula column, it sounds like you could see that, but you had to have patience. And part of that was, for folks who don't know, he's a one-eyed horse, which seems like, reading the article, you did have to be patient and kind of train him a little bit, because he may have been reacting to the one-eye effect a little bit earlier in the career. Talk about how you had to work with him and get him to the racetrack and get a little more confidence in him racing-wise.
I think perhaps early on, the eye may have been an issue, but the fact is this horse has dealt with it since he was 2 weeks old. So his perception of the world is with one eye. He's always trained fine with it. We haven't had any issues. The difference came when he ran, and I think he was just startled by the kickback hitting him on that blind side. The skin perhaps is more sensitive than we thought over there on that side of his face, and he did shy away from the kickback. So we provided him with a blinker, that blind eye, that soft tissue on that side of the face, and he really seemed to improve once we did that. We trained him in behind horses and let the kickback hit him on that, and I think it gave him a lot of confidence.
Let's talk a little bit about Saturday afternoon in the Breeders. It's 1.5 miles on the grass, so a distance that'll be new, and a surface that'll be relatively new. Did try the turf down at Fairgrounds, but again, just never really got into that race. But coming into 1.5 miles on the grass on Saturday, what are your expectations for Mighty Heart?
He has a pedigree that says he will go the distance. He breezed over it and got across it well. But anytime you ask a horse to do something totally new, you really don't know. You really don't know. We're going over there with a big question mark and a very nice horse.
What has your jockey said as he's gotten off in the past couple of starts? What's his confidence level like?
Oh, I think he's tremendously confident in this horse. I think he's going to go over there with big expectations, and hopefully the horse will bring it all together.
So give us your confidence level going into Saturday afternoon.
I'm very cautious. I'm not a predictor. I think this horse will run really, really well. We have a new surface. We have, a new distance, and we have 11 other horses. So we'll see.
You also have Belichick in, and in the Queen's Plate that we watched, that was a Mighty Heart Belichick exacta for you. It's a nice performance by the very lightly raced Belichick. In fact, still a maiden in only 3 career starts, owned by L&J Foxwoods and Company. Give us your thoughts Saturday on Belichick. Hasn't been seen since that second in the Queen's Plate, but what are your expectations for Belichick on Saturday as well?
I mean, here's a horse that lacks a little seasoning, but again, a horse that started off slowly and has steadily grown in confidence. He's a big, strong, powerful kind of horse, and I think he'll show up and be a contender.
As I say, it was a nice little finish for you in the Queen's Plate, the 1-2 finish. So we wish you a lot of good luck on Saturday in the breeders with those two. And again, I think Mighty Heart is also the one-eyed factor, makes these kind of horses fan favorites, overcome a little bit of adversity, and it just seems like he's gotten really good right now. So again, wish you a lot of good luck on Saturday. But before we let you go, I wanted to go back to last week and just get some thoughts on a nice performance there as well in the E.P. Taylor. I do a handicapping show in the afternoon, and we were watching the stakes from Woodbine last Saturday, and the E.P. Taylor came along, and I had said on Saturday, how did Court Return get away at 41-1? And I'd love your thoughts on Court Return. We'll watch the stretch run here. Chad Brown's Etoile winds up winning the race, but number 5, Court Return, the longest price on the board at 41-1, runs second. And the interesting thing was, Court Return in the Canadian just previously had finished third behind Ride for the Cause. That one went off at 5-2. You went off at 41-1. What were your expectations for Court Return? And like me, were you looking up at the board and saying, geez, the betting public has this wrong on this guy?
You know, from the beginning of the year, I had my eye on that race for this filly. You know, at 2, she didn't do much. At 3, she started to come around. She's a late developing family. She's the half to 2 Grade 1 winners, the Channel Maker and Johnny Bear, neither of whom really reached their full potential till they were 4 or 5, even later. So we knew she'd be a late developing filly. And when she won her first race this year, decisively, we knew we were on the right track with her.
Yeah, it seems like she is, just looking at the PPs, she is now an improved 4-year-old, and maybe improving 4-year-old filly. Anything on the agenda before the end of the year for Court Return?
Yeah, we're still sort of getting over the last race, and you know, there's not a lot on the calendar for one that wants to go as far as she does. Sure. Because I think the farther the better is going to be the ticket for her.
Yeah, as I say, it should be fun to watch going forward, because that price the other day was just kind of crazy given what she had done in the previous race. But for folks who jumped on, maybe got a little bit of value there playing around with that one. Again, wish you a lot of luck Saturday afternoon. Before we let you go, Josie, just some thoughts. You know, we down here, we're in the Saratoga area, and we broadcast from the backstretch at Saratoga throughout the meet, and so we were at a fanless Saratoga, and it was very different with no fans there. There were some owners allowed during the meet, but it was very different at Saratoga. But you know, congratulations to all the tracks that are racing, that do have the protocols in place, and racing does continue, and that's nice. And so again, we have the chance at a Triple Crown on Saturday afternoon. But I just like your perspective that the Woodbine season so far. Under the pandemic conditions, what's it been like north of the border there racing?
I think Woodbine's done a really good job of keeping things under control here and allowing us to be able to continue to race. The backstretch protocols have been pretty strict from when we came in the 1st of March. So they got the jump on all this, and you know, fortunately our backstretch population has stayed pretty healthy and able to carry on. We went through a period where we were allowing a couple of owners to watch their horses at the races, which was great because, you know, they have this huge investment and they're not able to really enjoy it. So it was great when they were able to do that. And now, as you know, our COVID cases climb somewhat in Ontario, they've now said no owners, and that's really a shame. We like to have the owners there. We like to have the fans there. This is, you know, a big moment, a potential Triple Crown horse, and we'd love to have people there for it.
Sure, completely understandable. But again, hopefully, knock wood, this is over sooner rather than later. We're keeping our fingers crossed for that. But again, it's been nice that the racing has continued, and it'll be fun for everybody. Even just watching on TV, it'll be fun to watch the chance at a little Triple Crown action north of the border coming up on Saturday afternoon. Josie wanted to plug you in, so again, we could alert people to be watching for that up at Woodbine on Saturday afternoon. Mighty Heart with a chance at the Triple Crown. Wish you a lot of luck. Normally, we're up there doing our remote broadcasts, Queen's Plate weekend and Woodbine Mile weekend. We miss those visits, and we bounce around the backstretch and have interviewed you personally up there, but it was fun to have you by phone. And again, wish you and the entire team a lot of luck on Saturday with Mighty Heart and beyond.
Thank you. Hope we see you again next year.
Yeah, appreciate it. Josie Carroll, again, chance at a Triple Crown Saturday afternoon at Woodbine.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the capital region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. It's in front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Belmont. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a three-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Happy to be joined now by Jeremiah Englehart. We have Empire Showcase Day coming up at Belmont on Saturday, and Jeremiah has some live runners in some of the stakes action, so I thought it was a great way to preview the day. Jeremiah, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How you doing?
Pretty good. Happy to have you on board again to talk some of the stakes action on Saturday at Belmont. We talked to you during the Saratoga meet and got a little update on things, and also just your thoughts on how things were playing out, pandemic-wise at the various venues. You're also, have runners out at Finger Lakes as well. Just curious now with the return to Belmont. I guess Belmont Fall is slightly different than Belmont Spring in that it's playing out maybe a little closer to what we saw up at Saratoga with some owners allowed. But how are the protocols and everything working out down at Belmont right now?
Well, Naira and Naith have done a really good job, as far as making sure everyone is, following the guidelines and making sure everything's safe. And it is a little bit different now. It's kind of more like Saratoga where, you're able to have some of the owners, probably not as many owners even here at Belmont than there is, on any given day at Saratoga,
Sure.
But you might get obviously you're going to get a little bit more tomorrow on Showcase Day.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's been nice to see things kind of returning to some sense of normalcy. And again, we've been knocking wood all along. Hopefully sooner rather than later things return. And I know they put some strict protocols in for the upcoming Aqueduct meet. And we will get through. But the racing game, I've been saying all along, we've done a good job, I think, overall, particularly when you look at some of the other major sports, and hopefully that all continues. And hopefully continues on Saturday with a nice Empire Showcase Day card. And as I say, you have some nice runners including in the Maid in the Mist for the 2-year-old New York bred fillies going a mile. The favorite on the morning line, Party at Pages. We're going to go back and look at the Lady Finger. You shipped her up to Finger Lakes to take a shot at the stakes race a few weeks ago. Party at Pages will be the number 1 horse here. 4-5 favorite, gets it done over Summer Brew by a head. Give us some thoughts on her career so far. She was a bargain buy at Keeneland last year for $10,000 and now is a stakes winner in only the third career start. Again, give us some thoughts on the career so far for Party at Pages and what you expect Saturday afternoon.
Well, she was a purchase by Matt Hand of MC Stable and Travis Durr last fall, and she's one of those fillies that she's not very big in stature, but she's got a big heart and she really enjoys what she's doing. I didn't really have her pegged as one of my better 2-year-olds at the beginning of when they started coming in, but the way it worked out, right now she's kind of climbed herself right up to the totem pole here, so to speak, and she's just one of those that she shows up for work every day, and hopefully she can stretch out a little bit in this race, and she'll give a good showing tomorrow.
Yeah, a nose away from being undefeated. The career debut up at Saratoga, she ran second to the Ray Handel first, her Irish Constitution, in a good performance. Broke the maiden in the next start, and then won that stake that we just saw. 2 starts back, broke the maiden pretty much on the front end most of the trip. Last time had to have a little closing kick to get it done up at the Finger Lakes, and as you kind of alluded to, on Saturday stretches out to a mile, but down at Belmont it's the 1-turn mile. What are your thoughts there, and what are you looking at as far as a pace scenario potentially?
I'd like to, in her last start, it was our plan to kind of get her. I didn't like our draw in the 1 hole there at Finger Lakes, especially for younger horses. It's kind of tough to do, come out of that chute, be in the one hole. It was our plan to kind of work our way off the rail and, try to stalk to, the best we could. And I thought Ray Lou did a great job being able to get her off the rail, and in the timing-wise of the race. It was something new for her, but she handled it okay. And I really do, I've had Jen Wolf, who is one of my riders all year long in Saratoga. She told me, hey, don't be afraid to let this filly sit. She'll do it, and she did it. And she also thinks that she might be able to stretch. So, I wouldn't have had her pegged as being a distance horse after her first race, but I'm hoping that it won't be an issue for her.
All right, we're looking for a good performance from Party at Pages on Saturday. Let's turn the page a little later in the program. You actually have a couple of horses in the Empire Distaff, 1 1/16 mile, 4 fillies and mares. That'll be race number 6, as I say, on Saturday afternoon. Let's start out by taking a look at Making Sense, and I pulled up the replay from the Fleet Indian. Making Sense, the number 1 horse, gets it done here. Again, on the front end. How'd she come out of the Fleet Indian? How's she going into the Empire Distaff on Saturday?
She's been training really well. I don't know if Saratoga I've always thought that Belmont was her favorite venue, kind of that one, the 1 turn. And I'm happy to get her back here for the Empire Classic. Obviously now she's going against Olders, and it's a big step up. So there's some nice fillies in there, and she's going to have to prove that she belongs in this class, but I think she's ready to fire again.
Yeah, the Fleet Indian was 3-year-olds only, but has faced Older and Allowance Company, including going back three starts to a Belmont 1-turn mile where she won pretty decisively. But buyer-wise, she's moving forward, progressing nicely over the last few starts. Is she one of those horses that's maybe getting a little better as she gets older?
She just seems like she's one of those horses that enjoys to run, and she's very competitive. When you see her work in the morning, before she started winning, you wouldn't think that she was as good as what she's turned out to be. But as she's gotten better, she's gotten more professional, and I really have liked what I've seen from the Fleet Indian into this race Saturday.
How often does that surprise you? Where in the morning you have a horse that is okay, let's say, and then in the afternoon, all of a sudden, whoa, this horse is much better than they're showing in the morning. How often does that kind of thing happen?
It happens. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between just, the horses and athletes that you see, competing all the time. Like, you take a guy like Kurt Warner, who was in the AFL for a while, and then, finally got his shot, in the NFL. after doing well against, lesser competition, then he thrived and up in the Hall of Fame. It happens, you get a horse that likes to be competitive and then starts winning and enjoys that. And then all of a sudden, they're a New York bred stake horse.
That's interesting. Also in the Empire Distaff, you have Critical Value. Last year's 2-year-old New York bred filly champion for our friend Marshall Graham of 10 Strike Racing. Marshall actually has a couple of horses, and he also has Lucky Move. But we're going to take a look. We're going to go back a couple of starts. We're going back to the last start. Was in the Fleet Indian 2 starts back and was off the board that afternoon. But the follow-up on the return to Belmont, third place finish behind Thankful and Mrs. Danvers. Critical Value will be the number 7 horse in here. Won the seasonal debut at Belmont 3 starts back off that nice 2-year-old season, and again came back with an improved effort on the return to Belmont from Saratoga last time. What are your expectations Saturday for Critical Value?
We weren't really sure. Originally, we were planning on going in the Iroquois with her and, cutting her back to 6.5. I think that 7/8 1-turn mile is kind of more in her wheelhouse. This is, we're asking her to do a little bit more. But I think against New York Eds, she might be able to handle a little bit better against open, than open company. So I just like, Marshall, he another horse picked out for the race, and I actually had obviously making sense. I was trying in a perfect world, we'd love to be able to split those 2 up.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like after looking at both spots that Critical Value's best chance of winning was going to be in the Distaff as well. So, then you just got to bite the bullet and hope that maybe you run 1-2. And then Marshall I'm sure would like to run 1-2 with his horses as well. So, he's very intelligent when it comes to finding the right spot for horses, and he's done a good job throughout her career mapping out her races. So we're on board.
All right, very good. Let's move on to the Hudson a little bit later on. For the sprinters going 6.5, and you have Captain Bombastic in here. You ran into Yapan last time down in the Chick Lang, who was turning out to be a nice little 3-year-old sprinter, but moving back into State Bred Company with Captain Bombastic on Saturday. Maybe we'll get closer to this replay we're looking at, which was the New York Stallion towards the end of the Saratoga meet, and Captain Bombastic wins pretty easily here, the number 2 horse in our replay. Are you looking for a rebound to a performance like this? And certainly, you mentioned the other horse a little bit earlier, but certainly if you look at the record for Captain Bombastic, should appreciate the return to Belmont, where he's 3 for 3 so far.
Yeah, and he's probably not at his best going 6 furlongs. He probably enjoys 6.5, 7, maybe that 1-turn mile a little bit more as well. I was really disappointed in his last effort because I thought we had him going into the race fairly well, and I think it was more or less just Sheldon not kind of knowing how this guy wants to run. I thought I did a pretty good job in explaining how we think he likes to run. Louis has always had kind of the right touch with him as far as how that horse likes to run. And I just think last time we probably weren't aggressive enough to get him into the race early on and then try to get him against the bridle to finish strong, because he actually from the 8th pole to another 8th after the wire, he was running and it just obviously that's not where it counts. But I'm still trying to. I still think that race was probably not his fault, and hopefully he can rebound tomorrow.
Yeah, his better efforts. He's clearly closer to the pace earlier than he was in that Chick Lang. And as you say, Luis Saez knows him, been on board for the last couple of wins. So Captain Bombastic in the Hudson on Saturday. Jeremiah, before we let you go, always like to get a little note on some of the first-time starters. And you have an interesting one coming up in the 5th race on Saturday at Belmont. Maiden Specials, State Bred Maiden Specials on the grass. You have A Life That's Good, and I looked it up. This is a sibling to a nice horse you and the same team had a couple of years ago. I Still Miss You, won the first 2 starts of the career, including the Astoria a couple of years ago. So there's a little bit of breeding here. Luis Saez is on board, 10-1 on the morning line. Give me your thoughts on the firster you have in the 5th race, A Life That's Good.
Yeah, she's a horse that we kind of like, Seth. I'm not certain that I ever fired up and ready to go that very first start. But in her last couple works, she's kind of always handled whoever I've had her against. And I feel like she wants to be, she wants the turf. So that's why I'm running around the grass on the first time. But, she's a real pretty New York bred filly. Like I said, like you said, the family I'm a huge fan of, and hopefully she shows up and runs a good race here on Saturday.
Yeah, I like the older sibling and the win early, and at the 10-1, I'll play around a little bit with a life that's good, and so we'll hope for a good performance in the debut. Jeremiah, as always, appreciate the conversation, appreciate your taking the time. Wish you a lot of good luck on Empire Showcase Day, and we'll talk again.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Seth.
Appreciate it. Jeremiah Englehart, again, with some live contenders coming up on Empire Showcase Day.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Tis the law, and the New York Red is going to win New York's Belmont Stakes. Authentic has won the Kentucky Derby. And it's maximum security off the turn in front. It's improbable in front, inside the 8 pole.
You're unbelievable. You're so unbelievable.
In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Just finished up that interview with Jeremiah Englehart looking at Empire Showcase Day, concentrating on the New York breds, but down in Maryland, they'll concentrate on the Maryland breds with the long-running Maryland Millions program at Laurel. And I thought who better to reach out to than Frank Vespi of the RacingBiz.com. Great coverage of racing in the Mid-Atlantic region. Frank, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Nice to be with you.
Happy to have you on board. Again, wanted to tout Maryland Millions Day. Wanted to tout also the Racing Biz because when I visited a couple of days ago, also want to alert people that you've got one of your handicapping contests coming up this afternoon, right? And it's a great way to kind of test your skills against other people, maybe pick up a little swag or whatnot. So if people visit theracingbiz.com today, they can make some Maryland Million picks, correct?
Absolutely right. Yep, we've got a free contest going, and it's Racing Biz swag and also Maryland Million swag on the line.
Nice.
So, it's you're not going to get rich winning this contest, but you have a little fun and then maybe walk out with a shirt or something.
Yeah, it gives you a little added enjoyment during the day to follow your contest picks, and a free contest, so the price is right on the Maryland Millions card. And again, these state-bred days are always a lot of fun, attract nice competitive fields, and Maryland Millions is perhaps the longest running of these state-bred cards?
I believe it is. This is the 35th, and this card actually, the interesting thing about Maryland Million, one of the interesting things is it was started by Jim McKay, the famous sportscaster who was a big horse racing guy and actually won a Maryland Million race a couple years after it started with a horse named for his son. So that's kind of a neat sidebar story. But the other interesting thing is that it was inspired by Breeders' Cup. So unlike a lot of other days like West Virginia Breeders' Classics or Empire Classic, it's actually not for Maryland breds. It's for Maryland sired horses. So And that actually is an important point. When you look at the races, there's some horses on the AE that are Maryland breds, but they only draw in if the number of horses in the race goes below 8. So basically, in I think all the races but for the Classic, it's all Maryland sired horses. But the Classic has a couple of Maryland breds that drew in.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, we talked about that before, in fact, I think. Let's take a look at some of the action. Let's start with the highlight of the day, the Maryland Millions Classic. Get some thoughts there. I pulled up the Pimlico Special just to watch Harper's first ride. Cordmaker finishes third in here. Harper's first ride is going to be the number 9 horse. The nice open company stakes runner, Owendale for Brad Cox runs second. Number 1, Cordmaker runs third. Harper's first ride and Cordmaker come back. Cordmaker hasn't been as proficient this year as last year, but boy, Harper's first ride just comes into this in really good form, obviously off of this victory in the Pimlico Special. But what are your thoughts on the Maryland Millions Classic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with the opening of the race to Maryland breds, you got 3 of them came in that are legitimate, open stakes horses. You got Harper's First Ride, who just won the Pimlico Special. You got Cordmaker, who's been third in the Pimlico Special 2 years in a row. And you got also Top Line Growth, who's 2-1. He's a Kelly Rubley trainee. He was just second in the Salvatore Mile, and the winner of that, Pirates Punch, is being pointed at the Breeders' Cup. So, these are legitimate open stakes horses, and this probably makes this the best version of the Maryland Million Classic that we've seen in a number of years. Having said all that, I think a horse is really interesting and might be kind of the now horse is Monday Morning QB. It's a Butch Reed horse, and this horse ran at Pimlico on Preakness Day in the Jimmy Murphy Stakes on the turf, and he just absolutely puked. He finished way up the track. He's a big, heavy horse. He didn't like that yielding surface even a little bit, and he didn't run at all. But if you look back to the race before that, which was his first race in over 7 months in the Federico Tessio Stakes, going 1 mile and an eighth. No mean feat to ask a horse to go 1 mile and an eighth first time off the bench. This horse runs second, and a really game second, while well clear of the rest. The winner of that race is Happy Saver, who turns around and wins the Jockey Club Gold Cup against older horses. So I think Monday Morning QB might be the value in this race. Clearly, I think clearly Harper's First Ride is the horse. He's the one you got to beat here. But I think as a value proposition, Monday Morning QB has a lot of interest for me.
Yeah, and interesting, that turf race may darken the recent form a little bit, but as you say, the second to Happy Saver looks pretty good now after what he did against the older horses in the Jockey Club. All right, let's go a little earlier on the card. The Maryland Million Sprint Handicap. I think folks are waiting for scratches, because if the first on the AE list gets in, Eastern Bay, that may be the direction people go for trainer Claudio Gonzalez. But let's play 9, lightly raced for Mike Trombetta. I thought was a little bit interesting. One more great time also comes in with some numbers that stack up nicely with this bunch. Hall Pass could be a player in here. Lewisfield, a 6-year-old that certainly has done well in these state-bred types of races. In this race, ran third last year, in fact, always a player. But what are your thoughts in the sprint?
Well, I guess we'll break a little news here. Eastern Bay and all of the AE horses are out, so they are not going to run. So I think everybody all the Maryland sired horses breathed a sigh of relief when Eastern Bay and a couple others didn't come in. So that makes life a little bit easier for those guys. This is a nice race. As you pointed out, you got a bunch of horses that are pretty good horses here. I mean, Lewisfield won this race for fun 2 years ago, and he was third last year behind Taco Supreme. Taco Supreme, another horse that was on the AE that didn't get in. I think a horse that might be worth a little consideration at a tiny little bit of a price is Brilliant Chase. This horse is in super good form. He's won 3 out of 4 now for Bryant Taylor, and 2 races ago, the one of the last 4 that he didn't win was an open conditions, no conditions allowance for PA breds at Parks. The winner of that race was Dreams Untold. Dreams Untold is a really talented horse. He didn't run too well in the grade 3 sprint for 3-year-olds, the Chick Lang. He didn't run too well in the Chick Lang over Preakness weekend, but he's a really talented horse on his good days. And in fact, that race went faster than a PA bred stake for older horses on the same card. So I think that horse is a little interesting. I mean, obviously the ones you mentioned are horses you got to think about: Baptize the Boy, Lewisfield, Hall Pass. You know, what about a horse that might be a little interesting too is Karen's Notion, a lightly raced horse for Nancy Heil, who's a local trainer who's been running pretty well. I mean, he's going to have to bring it. He's going to need his A game to compete with horses like One More Great Time, but he's certainly a horse moving in the right direction.
All right, let's go even a little earlier on the card and take a look at the Maryland Millions Distaff. Another full field. And that's what's nice about these state-bred, state-restricted, sired kind of cards. They can pull in these fields and they can be competitive. You can find some value perhaps. I thought, speaking of value, when I took a quick look at this race, I thought Coconut Cake, lightly raced, but is firing some numbers that match up with this group. 10-1 on the morning line. Clearly off the last race, Artful Splatter for Kieran McGee. It wasn't off the turf, sloppy track race. Maybe that played into the nice buyer, but that 90 buyer last time makes that one a horse you have to look at. But again, nice full competitive field in the Distaff. What were your thoughts?
Well, bad news. I agree with your analysis. Bad news. Coconut Cake is out.
Oh.
She is a scratch as well. Now, so couple things though. I think one is this is a great race. I mean, you've got multiple stakes winners in Limited View, in La Cetus, in Artful Splatter, and in Hello Beautiful. Hello Beautiful won the Lassie here last year on this day for fun, then won the Maryland Juvenile Filly Championship with a 95-ish buyer. I mean, just a huge, huge number. Repeated that number earlier this year. Her form has been darkened with a couple of bad races, including against Frank's Rockette and a Prioress. But certainly if she comes back to her best form, she's going to be a handful in this spot. But I'll tell you what, if you like Coconut Cake, give a look to Quiet Imagination. Those two horses finished 2 races ago, finished in each other's hip pocket, and they both have the same kind of running style. Quiet Imagination's going to be coming from off the pace here, and there looks to be a lot of pace here. You know, a lot of these horses, a lot of the major contenders want to be on or near the lead. Who's going to be running at the end? I think Quiet Imagination has a chance to certainly run into the exotics at the least.
And you get a price there, certainly. So a lot of fun. Sad to hear about Coconut Cake, though. I thought that was one to take maybe a little shot at. But, yeah, I hadn't seen any of the scratches yet. So thanks for the update there. Again, I'll tell people swing by theracingbiz.com all the time, not just today for the handicapping contest, but, again, great coverage of the Mid-Atlantic region. Obviously, there are going to be some thoughts on today's card and then recaps as well. You're headed over to Laurel this afternoon?
I'm actually there right now.
Nice.
I got here about 10:15. It's going to be an absolutely perfect day for racing, and as you said, full field. I mean, I'm excited. You know, like everyone, I'm in the house all the time, so I'm excited to be out and about and get a chance to catch up with some friends here and watch some great racing.
Yeah, what is the situation down there? Is it limited fans? Am I right about that?
Yes, it's limited to 250.
Okay.
And, you know, so I showed up. The good news is, you know, as working press, I get to bypass the line. But there were already probably 50, 60 people in line at 10:15. So first post is 11:25. So I think they're gonna fill up the 250 that they're allowing.
Very good. And again, I've been saying it, and I said it to the first couple of guests already, because everybody that checks in, I always kind of get an update on what their track is doing. But I've said, I think, and give me your opinion, I think racing as compared to some of the other sports has gone along well over the past, now we're talking about 6 months or so we've been in this. But when you look at some of the other sports, there have been some starts and stops. But I think racing has done pretty well under the pandemic/quarantine period.
I agree with that, and I think, you know, I mean, we always bemoan the fact that when you go to the track, there's nobody there, but in a strange way, that's kind of worked to our advantage over the last several months, and that, you know, the racing's economy is more dependent on the guy at home with his computer than it is the person who comes out to the racetrack. So I think they've done a good job. You know, I mean, Colonial had obviously the issues it had and had to close down because of it being a limited meet, but you know, there have been very few other incidents. I mean, I know Parks had a positive, but they were able to control that, and you know. So I agree with you. I think racing has done a good job overall with this. I mean, it certainly would be nice to get back to a more normal environment, but that's not the environment we're living in right now. In fact, the pandemic's getting worse right now. So, so I think, you know, we've got to make the best of the situation, and I think racing has done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I don't know how long sooner will be, but I always knock on wood and say hopefully sooner rather than later we turn around. But so far, yeah, so far so good. I'm happy to know you're there at the track, though, and so enjoy the afternoon down there at Laurel. We will certainly be peeking in during the OTB Live this afternoon, perhaps at some of the Maryland Million Stakes and whatnot. And we appreciate the insights, Frank, and we will talk again.
All right, many thanks, Seth. Always good to talk.
Appreciate it. Frank Vespi from theracingbiz.com. And again, if you visit that, you can play the free contest this afternoon. As they say, win a little Racing Biz and or Maryland Million swag there with free contest. And as I say, it's fun during the afternoon to see how your contest horses do. Empire Showcase Day in New York, closing day at Keeneland, where Gaffleone is clearly going to wind up with the jockey's title, but the trainer's title is a little bit intriguing there on the last day at Keeneland. Don't forget, we had Kim Weir from Thoroughbred Racing Foundation in with us last week, promoting the Tuesday event they had, which was nice. If you didn't see the video of the Blackburn Horse Show, I think you can still catch it on YouTube, but it was nice to see the guys in the correctional facility and some of them who have moved on to jobs outside in the horse industry. Worth checking that out. But she mentioned also the event tomorrow afternoon, Ponies, Pumpkins, and Pies at the Pitney Meadows Community Farm, West Avenue up in Saratoga. And again, it's tomorrow afternoon, but you have to reserve a slot. It's kind of a drive-through. You can see the horses there and pick up some pumpkins and pies and whatnot. Go to the TRF website for more information and reserve your time for your drive-through and to pick up pumpkins and or pies. TRFinc.com, TRFinc.org, TRFinc.org for more information. All right, I'm going to wrap it up because they are rolling with the pregame show at NYRA, so we want to get you there for thoughts on the card. Acacia and the Big A in the Belmont studio, as it were, the Belmont Outdoor Studio. So we will send it there, and I will wrap up Racing Across America for this Saturday morning. Thanks for joining us. A lot of great racing coming up this afternoon. Early post times mean we'll be back in a little over an hour probably with OTB Live for a Saturday afternoon. We look forward to seeing you then. Stay tuned. Good luck. Thanks for tuning in.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Offtrack Betting.